Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 3.
The Gale Force Winds podcast is proudly sponsored by the Newfoundland and Labrador Construction Association. The NLCA provides unparalleled opportunities for its members through industry education, construction information, government advocacy, and networking events. The NLCA is building Newfoundland and Labrador. For more information, visit nlca.ca.
Well, here we are at Gale Force Winds, and we are in the beautiful town of Placentia, and we're showcasing this wonderful part of Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm Alan Dale. With me, as always, my good buddy Jerry Crew. How you making out, Jerry?
Well, we're here because of the word Argentia versus Argentina.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell that story?
Well, you know what? I don't even want to get into the story, but we're going to call this little clip "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." So, Cindy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Cindy Fulford. I'm from Fox Harbour,
okay,
a little town about 20 minutes from here.
Yeah.
And I have a story, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a great story. So why don't you start right from the beginning?
Okay, I'll start from where I met you guys.
Yeah.
So we're at Tim Hortons today, and I overheard
Jerry
saying something about Argentina. So, and I said, excuse me, I'm not eavesdropping, but you
were eavesdropping.
I was not. You remind me of my father. I said, because when he came to Newfoundland for the first time, he was 18 years old. He was a Marine. He thought he was coming to Argentina, and he came to Argentia, he said.
Well, I was doing a social media post, and my phone kept correcting me to say Argentina, and it was driving me crazy. That's why I said to Alan, it keeps saying Argentina, and then you spoke up, right?
Yeah.
So your dad was a Marine, 18 years old, stationed to...
In Argentia. In 1960. It was his first time. He came from... it was his first time as a Marine.
Right.
And he lived in Garfield, New Jersey. And when he was 18, he enrolled in the Marines, and he came to Argentia for the first time.
Wow. It must have been quite a shock for him arriving here.
He said he can't remember. Well, of course, I talked to him, 40 years later, and he said that he can't remember anything about it except cold, fisherman, and he remembered the words of one line of a song. Fishing in a dory in the banks of Newfoundland. That's what he said.
How long would he have been here?
He was here 18 months.
So you just mentioned that there's a 40-year gap. Tell me about that.
Okay, so he was stationed in Argentia, and apparently he met my mother, and they had a little fling. I guess it was more than a one-night stand. They were there for a few dates, and for a while, and it was 1960, and of course it was very poor back then, and people were just wanting to get out of here, at that time. But so I'll go 40 years later. So anyway, when I was 18, I started searching for him, because I didn't know him. I never met him. So when I was 18, I started searching. First thing I did was went to the base, and I met the chaplain. And I asked him if he could help me, and he gave me some venues, but couldn't really disclose any information.
Right.
So he just said, do this, and anyway, nothing. So I gave up. And then, so maybe a few years, I don't know how many years later, I started again. And I wrote Oprah Winfrey, and I wrote Jesse Raphael, and I wrote Maury Povich, and asked them if they could help me. American Embassy, Canadian Embassy. So someone said if I write a letter to, so by then I was married and had 2 kids. I was looking all this time back and forth, but still dead ends. So I was about, I'll say 30, and I said, I'm going to really do this. I'm going to search more. So I wrote the American Embassy, and I told them, I said, I know you can't give me information, but can you please forward this letter on to my father, Andy Susko. I knew who he was because of his name on the back of a picture.
That's
I had
all
a
you
picture.
had.
Yeah, I was raised by my grandparents. My mother lived in the States, and I really didn't know her. She was like a distant aunt because my grandparents raised me from 3 days old. And she married an American, went in the States. But anyway, so I found this, like I said, this name, and I wrote the man, and I said, I know he had, the American embassy, and I said, I know he had to be here in 1960, because I was born in 61.
Yeah.
And telling you my age now. And anyway, I said, I don't want anything from him. I'm married, 2 kids. I just want you to forward this information. They sent me back the letter. They said, I'm sorry, we can't tell you anything about him. Right. So it was another dead end. So there was this thing on the internet about the base, saying that, you know, naval, anybody who have any connections to the base, you could put your name here. And anyway, I put my name and phone number, which is really stupid now, anywhere that could take my name and phone number, and an address. And one day, I had a email from someone, and she said, you're looking for Andy Susko? And I said, yes. She said, I'm sorry to tell you, Andy Susko passed away whatever year, and you know, my regrets are with you. And I write back, look, who are you? Like, you know, how do you know Andy Susko? And she wrote me back again, and she said he was stationed in Harnham in Newfoundland, or Stephenville, Newfoundland. Right. And I said, nope. It's not him.
That's not one.
So I continued. So every time anybody went to the States, I had friends who were from the States but living in Fox Harbour, I asked them to bring me back a phone book. So anytime I found an Andy Susko, or anybody went and found a Susko name in the phone book, they wrote it down, and I called every one of them. So that was for 22 years from the beginning till the end. So the 22nd, so I'll stay. So I call them all, and they, you know, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't stationed in Newfoundland, or no, I'm sorry, it was A Susko, it might have been Ann.
Right.
So anyway, this day I had an email from this woman from Ohio, and Marguerite Dawson Bomberry was her name, and she said, notice my
What year is this now?
So it's 2000, I guess.
Okay.
2000, yeah. So she emailed me, and she said, you know, I see you're looking for your father. I think I can help you. She was also, her father was an American serviceman, and she never found him. And when she did, it was too late.
Okay.
So she asked me, would it be okay if I help you? So, please. So it didn't cost any money. She wanted $20. So in case it was for long distance phone calls, because you're talking, you know, there was no free phone calls then. So anyway, she did, and so this day she emailed me. She called me. She said, Cindy, I found something, and so she said. So I was looking into 50 states. I never looked outside. I never looked international. So one day she said, Cindy, I found something. She said, I found a restaurant open in. This pop-up keeps coming up. She said 3 times. So I kept closing it, but it keeps popping up again. And so she sent it to me, the link, and it was. A new restaurant opened in the Caribbean, St. Martin, owned and operated by New Jersey's own Andy Susko. And I said, Margarita, I never found a man from New Jersey before. I don't know where he was from, but maybe in the back of my mind someone did tell me that, like, you know. So anyway, she tried to get a hold of him and couldn't get a hold of him. So she put a thing in the paper saying that she was doing a genealogy search on the Suskos, and could Andy Susko please call her. So this was in the Caribbean, in St. Martin. So 3 times she put it in the newspaper, and the 3rd time someone contacted her and said, I know who Andy Susko is, and I'll let him know that you're looking for him. So she did. The lady's name was Veronica. She called and she said, Andy, there's someone looking for you. They're doing a genealogy search. He said, I don't understand what they're doing a genealogy search for. So to set up an appointment. So she called him, and he wasn't home. His friend Bob was there, and so she said, you know, I really want to speak to Andy. And Bob said, well, I'm sorry. Andy had to step out for an emergency, but feel free to ask many questions. Me and Andy's been friends for years and years. So she said, you know, if Andy Susko was ever a Marine? And he said, oh my God, yes, he was a Marine, but that's like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
She said, sir, I really need to talk to Andy. This is going to get personal. He said, no, fine, that's fine. He said, just go on. What else do you need to know? He said, do you know if he was ever stationed in Newfoundland? He said, he was, but again, that's 40 years ago, and he was a Marine. And she said, sir, I can't go any further with this. I really need to speak to Andy Susko. He said, look, what do you want? I am Andy Susko. What are you looking for? He thought it was someone looking for money.
Wow. Wow.
So she said, do you remember a woman by my mother's name? And he said, oh man, you're talking 40 years ago. I can't remember yesterday. She said, he said, well, you know, she was from Fox Harbour. He said, I do think, I remember a lady from there. He said, yeah, I do. He said, I think I dated her a few times. And he said, well, sir, that woman had a baby 40 years ago. And right now she's sitting by the phone waiting for you to call him, because I knew this was all coming about, right? That she had to call me, told me she was waiting to talk to him. He said, listen, you're telling me I have a daughter? I have no daughters. I have 2 sons. No, sir, you have a daughter, and she has 2 children. He said, I have no grandchildren. You tell me I have grandchildren? He said, yes, she has 2 children. He said, listen, I never heard of this before. This is the first I heard of it. Give me some time. He said, my head is spinning. Give me some time to get my head together. And he said, I will call her after I talk to my wife and tell her what's going on. So she called me. She said, Cindy, you're not going to believe this. I found him. And,
wow.
And I said, no way. She said, yes, and I'm here crying, right? And she said, I said, Marguerite, I got a long distance beep, and I'm going to have to answer. I bet it's him because it was on no number. She said, no, don't answer the low. Stay there. I want to tell you more about him. He never knew you existed, and it beeped again. I said, Marguerite,
You gotta go.
I gotta go. I gotta get this call. And anyway, I answered the phone, and I said, hello. And he said, hello. I said, and I'm crying my heart out. I said, oh my God, is this who I think it is? He said, yes. He said, my name is Andy Susko, and I think I'm your father. With his New Jersey accent. Anyway, he started asking me questions, you know, about what color are my eyes, for one thing. And I said, I don't know what color to tell you my eyes are. They're not green, they're not brown, I guess they're hazel. I said, what color are your eyes? He said, well, they're not green, they're not brown, I guess they're hazel. Yeah. And then we started asking questions, and then every minute, can you send me pictures? And my mother had some kind of a bump on her nose. And he said, I do remember your mother. But I didn't know, because I didn't know she had a bump on her nose.
Yeah.
And she had surgery to remove it. So he said, yes. So then he kept calling me and emailing me, Cindy, I'm going to send you my you know, pictures of my grandma. His parents had passed away. His mother had just passed away. I never got to meet her, a few years before. But he starts saying things about, tell me the history of his family. And I remember years ago I went somewhere for a facial, and someone said, Cindy, your skin is different. It's not like the way, you know, Newfoundland skin. It's like you're olive. And so I said to my father, so, like, where are you from? Where's your parents from? He said, my father was from Czechoslovakia, and my mother was from Italy.
Wow.
So she was Italian, yeah.
So, did you get to meet him?
My father?
Yeah.
So that was in January. It was my 40th birthday by then, and he said, Cindy, I got to meet you. And I said, well, Andy, I was never on a plane in my life. I'm not going on no plane. He said, you have to. I have a business. I can't leave my business. So he had a restaurant in Orient Beach. So I said, no, I'm not going. But anyway, by March, he had me convinced. So he sent me a ticket. And I got on a plane, 3 planes to get there. They had to de-ice the plane in Newfoundland and in St. Martin. When I got off the plane, it was like a big wall of heat. Oh my God, I never experienced anything like it in my life. Yeah. So he was there to meet me. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself now. So I told the stewardess that it was my first time on a plane. I'm scared to death. Like, I don't know what to expect. Not like nowadays, but she brought me into the pilot, showed me the cockpit and all the buttons. And I said, I don't think you should have showed me that. It was too scary. Yeah. So anyway, got on the plane, and 3 planes. The 3rd plane, they said, in half an hour we're going to land in beautiful St. Martin. I started crying. I couldn't stop. I was crying my heart out because it's, you know, it was finally come together, right? And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what he was, you know. So anyway, here I'm crying, and finally landing. All these women are around me. My God, honey, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And I couldn't get to tell them. So we're just about to get off the plane. I had my suitcase, and I said, I'm meeting my father for the first time. And here's all these women crying with me, pushing me at the plane because they wanted me first so they could follow me and see what was going on, right? When I got there, all the media was there with my names.
No.
Yeah, all the newspaper and the radio, and so there he was at the airport, and there was no flowers at the airport in St. Martin at that time. All the flowers were gone. I don't know what happened. So here was this big man from New Jersey with a long gray ponytail, and a big old artificial teddy bear, iguana. Oh. That's how it was. Because I remember I said to him, how am I going to know who you are at the airport? And he said, I'll be the only one there with no clothes on because he has a restaurant on a nude beach. But it's not true. But yeah, anyway, so we somebody took pictures, this professional pictures. He was National Geographic photographer. He was there and took pictures.
Of you guys.
Yeah, yeah, pictures. And
You'll be able to email that to us, will you?
yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can email some pictures to you. Yeah. And newspapers was there and did an article on us.
That's fantastic.
So did you see him again after that?
Then every year for 12 years, he sent a ticket. Every year I went to see him. And my
You gotta be
kids
kidding
too.
me.
Yeah.
And your kids as well?
Yeah, my kids went a couple of years. Yeah.
And they got to meet him.
Yeah.
Wow.
As I was driving through St. Martin the first time, people had signs on the side of the road. My father was in St. Martin. It's not a very big island. He was in for 30 years, over 30 years. People had signs on the side of the road. Hi, Cindy, welcome to St. Martin. Hi, Cindy, welcome home. Yeah, yeah.
So what does St. Martin mean to you? It must be a soft spot in your heart.
It is, yes, yeah. But now I never want to go back. He's gone now.
Yeah.
It's different now. And the restaurant's gone also, the Hurricane. He lost I think it was 3 times he lost his restaurant.
What
And
was
then
the
you
name
don't
of
have
it?
insurance. Well, that one was, that was Andy and Cheryl's. But it was Surf Club South, it was called at one time. It was on Orient Beach. Yeah.
So in the conversations, it must have brought back to your mom and like time here, and
Yeah.
must have been a flood of memories for him, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
well, yeah, he said he couldn't remember a lot about it. He was so young,
Yeah.
and like I said, he thought he was coming to Argentina.
He was 18, you said, when he was here.
18,
Wow.
An 18-year-old Marine stationed up here.
Yeah,
What a beautiful story.
yeah.
What a beautiful story.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much for being on Gale Force Winds. This is, I think, going to be the highlight of the Placentia conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for eavesdropping on our conversation
I
today.
did not eavesdrop. You talk loud.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much. It was
Okay,
a pleasure
thank you,
meeting you.
Gary.
Lovely
Thank
to meet you. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
While we were in the Placentia Town Hall, we heard Newfoundland music next door. We went over, and what you're about to see is some people in Placentia celebrating Newfoundland with music. This is a common occurrence weekly.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.